Tuning you in now to the LBX Show with your host, Brandon Wiley. Brought to you by the LBX Collective, your community to connect, engage, and inspire.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to the LBX Show for April 19th, 2026. We have a concise show for you lined up today. And basically, we're going to dive into news you should know. Then we'll roll right into an open and shut with Kevin Williams, obviously discussing all the latest openings and closings and the trends from last week. And then we're going to round out with Adam Pratt at Arcade Corner. He's going to cover Stranger Things, rumors, Disney Speedstorm, Ski Hero from Eunice, and much more. And so with that, we're going to dive into some news you should know. All right. Well, today is April 19th, as I mentioned, and today is my son's golden birthday today. So this little guy you're seeing right here on the screen with Goldenrod, right? So that's why I picked this picture, is now 19. He's filming some short films this weekend for school, and then again next weekend as well. So he's just been super busy, loving his film school and everything else. But yeah, they grow up quickly. But happy birthday to my son, and hope you have a great 19th birthday. All right, so next we've got, what do we have here? We've got Amusement Expo, and 2027, the call for speakers is now open. So organizers are seeking operators, route professionals, manufacturers, tech leaders, and innovators from all segments of our amusement and attractions and LBE industry to deliver practical and future-focused content. So they're really looking for things like, what are you looking forward? They want field-tested strategies and lessons learned from, as well as the new industry insights. And they want to hear, everybody, your voice. So they want to hear you. You can, some topics that they're definitely looking for are AI for operators, staffing and Gen Z talents, cybersecurity, revenue strategies, XR and immersive tech, finance, tariffs, a bunch of stuff. So the deadline for submitting a proposal this year is July 1st. Those selected will be nominated or will be notified by September 1st. So you've got some time still, but you definitely want to try to get in and start thinking about what you might do, who you might collaborate with, if it's going to be a panel or a roundtable or something like that. Next year's education program is March 15th to 16th, obviously 2027, and the trade show will immediately follow, which is March 17th and 18th. So if you're going to submit something, go ahead and start thinking about getting that in. Your deadline is July 1st, but that's going to come up really quickly. It is April 19th already. This year is flying by. So make sure you get that in there and submit for a presentation. So speaking of speaking, Kevin Williams will be speaking this week on competitive socializing. This is a little bit of a surprise for him, and he's excited to be a part of this. He'll talk a little bit more about it in Sound Off in just 2 days. But he'll be talking about competitive socializing for London Experience Week. This is put on by the World Experience Organization, or WXO, and you can get tickets at londonexperiencweek.com. So again, that's londonexperiencweek.com. They are pricey, and it is an in-person thing. So WXO does put on a bunch of different things like campfires and other things like that are remote. But London Experience Week is an in-person physical experience. So if you're in London or planning to travel to London this week and you want to swing by, they sell day passes as well as full weekly passes. And again, you can get that at londonexperiencweek.com. So that is that. And all right, so this one is really interesting because these guys just launched in October of 25. This is Scorbit. And they recently put out, this isn't new news, like this came out a couple of weeks ago. They announced that they have now added real money arcade tournaments to its connected gaming platform. And their whole goal of Scorbit is trying to bring classic and modern arcade games online. And so they figured that they basically described this launch as a major step forward in transforming physical gameplay into connected, competitive, and monetized experiences. The real money arcade tournaments, they feature, basically enables players to enter competitions. They can step into live tournaments. They can compete on demand and win cash prizes. So, you think about like arcade games or pinball or whatever, like, they've always been competitive. Like you go in, you have the leaderboards on the individual games or obviously on the pinball, but they've never been connected in like an online, really, really interconnected way. And so they feel like, the founder, co-founder of Scorbit, Jay Adelson, says like adding tournaments with real money prizes raises the stakes and gives people a reason to keep coming back. And so obviously it's about repeat visitation and play. Operators are actually able to control the structure of their tournaments. They can set higher stakes jackpots. They can allocate a portion of entry fees to the prize pool. So they can really drive and control these tournaments in their own way for operators. But to launch this feature, Scorbit's going to be hosting tournaments across 13 locations with with $4,000 in total jackpot winnings available. As I mentioned, they did launch in October 2025. They're now live in 15 locations across California, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, New York, Oregon, Tennessee, Virginia, Washington, Colorado. So like they haven't really consolidated or focused on any one particular place, but they are expanding, and they have plans to expand to more than 30 locations by the end of April. So, just a couple of weeks, we'll see them expand into all over, 30 locations, which is awesome. So the way that these guys work is, there's a little device that goes into the game or to the pinball machine, and they basically connects that game to their online leaderboard. And you can actually have what they call their Scorbit vision, which is real-time scores and leaderboards that basically give the game the arcade full arcade feel. So anyway, that is Scorbit, and they are they're new tech platform making their way and growing. And so it's good to see this type of innovation coming into our space. Obviously, I am a big fan of gamifying existing facilities and venues in ways that can drive that repeat visitation, and these guys are doing a great job on that front. All right, and then next up, we've got kind of excited about this one because one of my 2026 predictions is taking its first step to becoming a reality. And I will say it's a minor step, but it is definitely signaling that this one is going to ultimately happen. So one of my little medium predictions, this is my 50-50 prediction, said Disney will finally announce plans for their move into location-based entertainment. And that is happening. So at least initially, so this is Disney Store limited time. So Disney Store is expanding its retail offerings in new pop-up shopping spaces. And the first one is launching in May. So they're collaborating with Go Retail Group and Disney's Store's limited retail destinations. They say will bring Disney storytelling to life through in-person shopping experiences. So this is these like camp style experiences. I had mentioned, Disney has a long-standing relationship with camp, and a lot of their brands and IP, camp has developed entire retail experiences around it. One of my big swing predictions in 2025 was that Disney would acquire camp. I still think that's a phenomenal idea. Disney's really struggled with making their way into the location-based entertainment space. They have a great retail experience, just from a straight retail standpoint, but they really have struggled to create other micro location-based entertainment experiences in the same way that Sony has tried, but that Netflix has done, for example, and Paramount has done. And so these are, this is, I think, their first step in this direction. So the Pittsburgh location will open on the 23rd of May, and then the New Jersey location will debut in autumn of this year. So, again, they're making their way in this direction. Are they going to be full-blown LBE this year? I don't know. It's why I made it a medium probability prediction. But, this is the first step, I think. These new pop stores are going to sell authentic Disney merchandise, and as well as just places to celebrate Disney fans and fandom. And they say, quote unquote, on their blog post that Disney, they will be filled with authentic Disney merchandise, unforgettable experiences, and a space to celebrate the fandom and wonder of Disney. These stores will carry on Disney Store's mission to meet the fans where they're at in an environment that reflects Disney Store's creativity, storytelling, and quality. They say there'll be signature Disney Store touches and experiences. There'll be opening ceremonies and most immersive in-store designs and exclusive products. And I think this is really interesting as well that, Arik Lubkin, he's a VP of Experience Design at Camp. He says experiential retail and immersive experiences have evolved to the point that they get to be their own thing now. And this is the thing I've been waiting for Disney to finally figure out and do. And it looks like they're finally making this move in this direction. It'd be really interesting to go, if I can, and see the Pittsburgh or New Jersey locations once they open, just to get a sense for how closely are these aligned with camp style experiences, or is there or is this really something new, or is this really just like a retail location that just happens to have some basic like little experience? I don't know. So this is what we're waiting to see. Obviously, they're just putting out their basic word right now, and we will learn more in the future. All right, last thing we've got on News You Should Know. I first announced this last week, but we have season 5 coming up in August. It kicks off season 5 of LBX Collective and LBX Show. Season 5 is Sound Off as well. And so I'm looking for suggestions. We are looking for suggestions on how to change up and improve the LBX Show. We will be making some format changes. There's no question about that. I'm very excited about some of those already in the works, but would love to hear from you. So please do what you can to scan this QR code if you're here and you're watching this, or if you're listening to it, you can go to LBXers. So lbxers.com/season5 with the number 5. So lbxers.com/season5, and you can submit your suggestions, and I'll take any of them. Love to hear from you and any of these suggestions that you might possibly have. So, all right, coming up after the quick break, we are going to dive right into Open and Shut with Kevin Williams. Let's do it. Intercard is the only cashless system designed, developed, and manufactured all under one roof. They introduced cashless technology to the amusement industry and have been leading the way for over 30 years. Cashless systems from Intercard increase customer spending, guest satisfaction, and boost revenues by up to 30%. Intercard is so proud to be serving the amusement industry, and if you aren't already part of their global family of customers, they hope you will become one soon.
Hey, a big hello to the latest Open and Shut. I hope I find you well, Brandon.
Yeah, doing well up here up north again, and so just enjoying the forest and the elk.
Bit envious of that. Must be nice.
Absolutely. Well, should we dive in? We got a lot to cover.
Yes, let's jump straight in. And so you can see that we have a continuation, a little down on maybe last week's, but still a continuation of investment into the sector. No stopping. We were talking about our friends at GameFace a little bit more in Sound Off in a couple of days' time, but fundamentally, this is the entrance of one of the known competitive socializing manufacturers into the space of developing their own facilities. It comprises a number of unusual attractions alongside some familiar augmented darts and gamified shuffleboards. It's an interesting location. I will go into a little bit more about that when we speak more.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about this on Sound Off. I've been to Printworks area in Manchester, and this is going to be a great, it was really an up-and-coming interesting space or interesting place in Manchester. So it'd be fun to talk about. Looking forward to it. And I'm very excited about to see where GameFace goes. It has, obviously, has a very Game Vault-ish feel to it, obviously, given it's created by Conductor. But yeah, looking forward to that discussion.
Our friends at Sandbox hit an interesting milestone, 35 facilities, according to them. My numbers vary by 2, but again, they are motoring along with their franchise, and they're dropping their trousers a little bit and giving us information about their historical situation. They're stating that they have $300 million generated in historic ticket sales since the creation of the operation. And my calculator tells me that that is low compared to what we would be expecting from over 80 facilities over this period of time. I am sure there's a lot more nuance to the data, and hopefully we'll get Steve and the team there to give us a breakdown when we have a chat with them in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, I mean, look, even if even if you take into account the fact that the 85 locations haven't been open,
Yep.
all at the same time, and you can't take the 300 million and divide it across 85 locations, obviously. But even taking into account the scale up that they've had, the revenue per location, at least from some back of napkin math, does not look super alluring. It certainly doesn't look like it support many of the places where they're dropped in from a lease and retail, like from a lease standpoint, from a location cost standpoint. So I don't know. I'm not sure it's a number I'd be touting,
No.
but certainly they're growing their franchise. They continue to grow the franchise, but be very interested to understand which ones are the outliers and which ones are just completely falling down.
The variables are the issue. Locality, they place themselves in expensive, high foot traffic locations. They're under a franchise model. They have to pay licensing fees for the use of the Netflix and other properties. They have quite a high staffage because of the way that the facilities are operated. And not all of them have secondary sales options, i.e., you're not just going in there to buy the game, but buy the merch or even buy a cocktail. So there's a lot of variables that need to be answered so we can work out, even if this is a mean or an average 300 million. But giving a number like that without any context can bite you in the butt sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
One thing people ask me about a lot is the Japanese market and why they're so into VR. And we'll touch upon, it's going to become the catchphrase, we'll touch upon this in sound off later on, but we turn towards operations such as XR Center Games Space, who are an up-and-coming developer of virtual reality entertainment. And they've just jumped in bed with our friends at Typhon, develop content, which we will talk about for their facilities, but also they've been updating the content that's going into the facility. And one of the Typhon sites has added a sit-down motion seat, old school, as I would call it, VR experience to their mix to their audience. At the same time, that kind of gives us a rundown on where their audience is coming from and how they're positioning themselves in the market. But again, we can delve a little deeper later on. The VR virtual adventure, the warehouse scale, the human scale, whatever you want to call it, it is motoring along. And our friends in Turkey at Mervus, Museverse, I think would be the best way. They have relocated from their original temporary site to a more permanent site. They're in the museum district in this part of the region, and they are really pushing their experiential approach to this. Again, we will be talking in the coming Sound Off episode about exactly where these virtual adventure systems fit and the possible implications that they have for large audience entertainment retention, which used to be filled by 4D theaters and the cinema sector, and now are being turned towards a more active or interactive immersive experience approach.
Oh man. So look, I struggle with this for a few reasons. One, I think that VR has a lot of really great potential for museum educational type experiences. We'll call it that. Things that you would, as add-ons into existing museums, as an actual place you go and visit a virtual museum. I think that's where I really struggle, partly because we've talked about length of time wearing the VR headsets. And when you go and visit a museum, typically your dwell time at a museum is certainly more than 45 minutes, which is, I think, the max that I would, I personally would want to wear one of these, and also would recommend somebody wearing one of these at any given time. And so if you want your dwell time to be that of a museum and give people those types of experiences, then this is probably not the right approach. Secondly, I get and we all know, any of us who have dealt with VR understand why the symbols have to exist on the walls and everything else and on the flooring. But there are also other ways to make this more aesthetically appealing when you're not wearing the goggles, make it look more like an educational institution or like a museum, bring in some real physical aspects. So anyway,
Yeah.
I just really struggle with this approach as a standalone opportunity. At least they have a shop, a museum shop, to sell some merchandise, and I do wish more facilities would actually have merchandise for sale. It's a great way to add per cap, to increase your per cap. But yeah, that is I'm not sure about this one.
We'll talk about the nuances a little bit later. And another another deployment. It is the popular thing to do, this time in Brazil, again, with a much more focused application towards the museum side rather than the adventure side. And I think, when we speak in Sound Off, you'll understand a little bit more of why it may be popular for investors to look at this kind of application of immersive technology rather than the more traditional VR arcade setup that we saw a couple of cycles ago. Moving along, and in the age of CinemaCon, we are recording this just as CinemaCon is coming to an end, and the Cinetainment banner was unfurled very heavily during that conference, and we are now beginning to hear of a lot more of the Cinetainment kind of approach towards the cinema operation. Hooky, we've talked about them before, the Texas-based chain that has put a lot of its energies into developing its unique brand of amusement, entertainment, F&B, and cinema, all in one package. They're up to 10 facilities. That shocked me, how quickly that they've jumped to 10 sites now, but they are promoting that they have 10 operational facilities. And this latest one in Nashville Yard in Texas is a 50,000 square facility, and is no slouch, really, on the themality as well as the presentation.
Yeah, I mean, their F&B looks fantastic. A really great menu. Their aesthetic is excellent. They've got a great brand. Their website is on point. It's just, do we need another Cinetainment? Cinetainment model? I don't know. I mean, there's certainly welcome the competition, and obviously they're doing something right at 10 locations and continuing to expand. But this is, I feel like we're a dime a dozen, especially coming out of the Texas ecosystem, the Cinetainment ecosystem. So, really don't see the differentiator, I guess, is my point, other than the brand, their aesthetic and look and feel. And their F&B is slightly elevated over some of the other F&B that you would find at like a Santikos or Synergy or Fat Cats.
You're right. The differentiator is king here. I am concerned that too many of these Cinetainment facilities have followed the model of have cinema, super glue a mediocre F&B, mediocre FEC, and then put in the middle of that a reasonable hot dog nacho selection, where I would argue that this is a much higher approach to the themality, and the super gluing of an arcade onto this has not really elevated anything to be more defined than the competition. And there is a strong possibility that if you're not following a model where your facility stands out and you can stand in the middle of your facility and say, I am inside a X, Y, or Z, then you're going to get run over by the horde. And there's this jumping off the bridge fallacy, which is just because everybody's doing it, you've got to do it as well. So there's a lot of things to touch upon, really, on where Cinetainment is going, even though the cinema industry now admits that it is an opportunity for future survival. Our friends at Launch, they're really getting into their stride regarding their Launch family entertainment variants. This is pushing the facility beyond their trampoline and active entertainment and going for a full mixed entertainment model. They have the bowling, they have the amusement, they have the mini golf. They still have trampoline, so they still offer that as a component. But as you can see by the branding and the push, they are focusing more on the entertainment than they are on the active entertainment. One of the big developments in the competitive socializing sector was the first mainland European appearance of F1 Arcade. This is following the high-level agreements that the operation made with their franchisee in Spain. I do apologize. And we saw how the franchisees taking their model and rolling with it for the Spanish and Italian and the European market. We will again touch upon this in more detail in Sound Off, but I would just like to say here, I was interested at seeing the little changes that the franchisor had encouraged the franchisee to make, building on the lessons that they've learned with their North American openings and their UK openings. There is devil in the detail that we should take a look at, because it may be pointing to a better understanding of where competitive socializing on this level is going.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I'm looking forward to this discussion in Sound Off. Having visited now, actually visited in F1 Arcade, it'd be interesting to see which, what learnings they're taking and deploying, in the EU sector, as well as hopefully some of their other future North American locations.
Agreed. Jumping down, and we exit the openings and enter the turbulent world of the shuts and the rebrandings. We've only got two really main statements to deal with, and the big one was the loss of quite a prominent competitive socializing operation in the UK. Right at the beginning of the trend of competitive socializing, a number of entrepreneurs had rammed their flag into the ground and made decisions to enter the market and developed their own unique branding. Those brandings and styles were emulated by the competition, and a lot of the features and fundamentals that we see from other operations can be charted back to these early iterations. One of those early iterations was Point Blank. They started off with facilities in, let's get this right, they had in Scotland and the north of the country. They put a lot of effort into offering a semi-shooting gallery realistic experience. So not a clays, not a sports shooting, but more a shooting gallery. They used pneumatic firing weapons, which were quite realistic. They had a very strong bar and cocktail component. They went for the booth model. And then we hear that the company had fallen into difficult times. The momentum of their audience traction, the stickiness of their experience was finding itself. And then suddenly we were put up with information that the operation had found it difficult to match its payments for a particular venue. That venue decided to just take the keys away from the operation. That caused an awful situation where the staff couldn't actually communicate with people who had made bookings because they were totally locked out of their systems. And this then cascaded, and the whole of the Point Blank operation fell into insolvency and has closed down. That's 3 facilities gone from the market. The t-shirt says, we will be talking more about this on Sound Off, but fundamentally I wanted to touch upon this as quite a important line in the sand regarding competitive socializing. It points to the three areas that we keep on going on about, which is, can you survive on just having one type of experience in the market? Number 2, can you hope that one type of flavor, and I don't just mean the experiences, but I mean also the themality, the decor, the operation, and all of that, can survive for this period of time, nearly 10 years without change? 5 years without change, excuse me. And the big one, which is it may have been successful at the beginning, but was that a flash in the pan? And maybe did you need to go back and reevaluate what your audience was getting out of it? And there's also another mix into that, which I won't touch upon now too much, but there's also the price. Are you correctly priced? Are you value for money?
Yeah, I was going to say I would just hold off my comments till sound off. I mean, I have my issues with Point Blank as a venue itself, versus like Clay's or other shooting venues. But yeah, some of the broader issues you've already talked about. Definitely looking forward to that discussion. Sound off.
This is one giant tease for the coming sound off.
Yes, exactly.
A closure, but for a good reason. Our friends in Florida, Fire Betty's. I always want to call them Fire Bellies, but anyway, Fire Betty's. They are a live music sports bar. Well, no, bar and entertainment environment. They're taking a couple of weeks off. They're going to close the facility at this point, and they're going to add or expand upon their amusement, entertainment components. They are really pivoting towards being an actual bar with an arcade bar rather than just being a bar. They're going to, I'm led to believe from the write-up, they're going to continue to have the live music element, but they are really doubling down on utilizing their space as an arcade bar. Unusual time to pause. This is the type of thing you do during winter. Why you do this now? Many reasons. Maybe space is available to them, they didn't have the time, or as I personally feel, is that they're seeing what the competition around them is doing, and the writing's on the wall, literally, and they have decided to bite the bullet now and get it over and done with, so they can then benefit from the increased revenue they would expect from this. It is interesting when you start to see companies pivoting towards this approach, how much this market is influencing the bottom line for operations.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting. I mean, given Fire Betty's is looks like more like a concert venue,
yes,
or just an event venue in general. I mean, they have comedians and others, and so yeah, I mean, why not? If they've got the extra square footage, like go ahead and optimize that square footage for revenue producing that we all know that arcades can do if they're run properly. And given the fact that they're probably doing just fine as an event venue, then why not just scoop up that extra per cap?
And if you do the due diligence, the Tallahassee sector has just had a couple of new entertainment venues pop up. So the writing was on the wall that they needed to ship up or shape up. That's a quick overview. The usual T&Cs apply here. Hit us up on LinkedIn with corrections and new information. We have new Stinger reports coming out. We have also a virtual arena in the works coming out. And if you have any direct questions, there's my email.
Perfect. Yeah, fairly concise, open and shut today. But looking forward to the next one, but also looking forward to really expanding on some of the discussions that we just barely touched on here in Sound Off in just a few days.
Have a good one.
If you run a location-based entertainment brand and want to attract more visitors, check out Radius. They use real-time location data and customized marketing strategies to help brands like yours stand out. Radius can boost your foot traffic and build a loyal customer base. Plus, they're offering a complimentary local market analysis to show you exactly how they can help you grow. Curious? Visit radius.co and ask about your free market analysis. That's RAYDIUS.co.
All right. Well, that was a great open and shut with Kevin Williams. And right now we've got Adam Pratt with Arcade Corner coming up.
Greetings, everyone. It's Adam with Arcade Heroes, and welcome to Arcade Corner here at the LBX Collective. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot to talk about this week. As often happens after a trade show, news dries up for a while as it takes time to hit production. Sega was hoping to have certain games like Daytona Championship USA Motion Edition shipping by now, but when I reached out to them this week, they said that the boats had been delayed, and so now they're expecting first week of May is when those would be available and shipping out. But you can still place an order for that or any of the other games that you saw. And once we get into May, we should start having a bit more news, as we'll have things like John Wick will be released to Dave & Buster's. And I guess speaking of that, I've already heard reports of the Stranger Things arcade, which Raw Thrills recently teased as already being installed into certain Dave & Buster's. Although it's a little odd to me, I don't know why they're not really promoting. So far, there's been no promotion other than a teaser. But like Dave & Buster's hasn't been doing a promotion, and Raw Thrills hasn't, Netflix hasn't, and so I don't really know why they're being so secretive about this. It's not like these are nuclear code secrets or something, but it is a ball toss game, but it's a giant piece, and so there's actually videos already popping up all over the internet of people that have already come across a couple of these installed ones. I think mainly on TikTok is where I saw one, but as more and more show up out there, one that I heard is being installed was being installed this weekend, or should be ready this weekend, is at Dave & Buster's in Ontario. But as we also, speaking of things coming in May, as you see on the screen here, Adrenaline Amusements did create a page for their Disney Speedstorm arcade, although I don't know if it's technically just supposed to be Speedstorm. At least when you go hover over their products bar, it just says Speedstorm Arcade, but that might be to just shorten it so that it doesn't make the menu explode or anything. But this should be shipping out next month, and there's been a lot of hype about it. As far as the videos that I filmed at Amusement Expo, it's one of the most viewed as far as specific products go. Oftentimes the videos that I do of the booth tours tend to get a lot more views than anything else, but the specific product videos, it just depends on what it is. And so Disney being a name that grabs attention from people, as well as bots online through search engines that are crawling over the internet, so they pick up on the Disney thing. But this, as I believe we discussed in the past, it's based on a free-to-play game that's available for both mobile and console platforms, like it's on the Switch and things of that nature. But this one is obviously been adapted for arcade use. It has the card system. Cards are not necessary for the game to operate, as like with, say, Raw Thrills, their games will stop working if they run out of cards. In this instance, that will not happen. And the amount of cards that are available in boxes is a lot smaller than some other companies. There's only 200 per box. They haven't finalized pricing on them yet. But again, since it's not absolutely necessary for the game to work, it's not as big a deal if you run out of stock. But if you want customers to enjoy the game fully, then you do want to have cards there, because that is what will allow them to unlock characters. Now, there will be a certain number of characters available by default. I was told that what was available at Amusement Expo, which I think was just Mickey Mouse and Donald, if I'm recalling correctly, unless you had a card to scan, then you would those were the defaults, but that's not necessarily what the defaults will be for the production model. Adrenaline said they're still deciding on what that will be, but those are big 75-inch screens and portrait mode and motion seats and 9 different tracks to race. So definitely something that will draw attention, and we should be hopefully hearing more about the other opponent in the kids racer arena here soon, the Nicktoons Kart Racers Arcade by Andamiro USA, but I haven't seen anything on that. Also, speaking of racers of a sort, now this was supposed to be at Amusement Expo, but due to a problem with shipping, it did not appear. And this is called Ski Hero, and the first skiing game that we've seen in this industry, I think, since what was that? Super Alpine Racer by Rothrills and Bandai Namco, which was something like 2014, 15, or 16, somewhere around there. Been over a decade or more since that was being sold. And so Ski Hero is a skiing arcade video game, a skiing simulator. The foot controller, it's maybe, but at least from what I've seen of the videos, it's maybe a little bit more like like we can watch the video here, but it's more like a snowboard of a sort. But let's take a look. This was also, I think, supposed to be at IAPA, but it also didn't make it to IAPA. So as far as trade shows goes, it's been having some bad luck there. As I've wanted to give it a try because, you know, it's a video game and I like to try all the video games that I can. But I guess it's not a snowboard in the sense that it's not fully, you know, it's not one board like that. It's wider than your typical snowboard, so you don't have to stand on it sideways. You still stand on it like skis, but like with Super Alpine Racer, the foot part pieces, I'm not sure what you would call them, they were their own independent swivel type controllers on top of a platform, and so that's where it's a little bit different than that. And then of course the game itself, different courses and characters and graphics and all that stuff aren't available with the competing skiing games out there. But you can also link units together. It also has ticket redemption built into it, and this is available now. Just not sure when I'll get a chance to see one. And that pretty much wraps up the news that we have, although there is something that's kind of arcade adjacent. Like if you're really into video games or whatnot, this is probably be more interesting for you. But back when I was a kid and I was thumbing through GamePro magazines, I remember coming across reviews for the Neo Geo AES and different games, and they looked amazing to me in like 1991, 1992. Just blew my mind how they looked, and I didn't realize it was based on an arcade system, which was the Neo Geo MVS, which if you've been in this industry for a long time, then you know what that is. But the Neo Geo AES, or Advanced Entertainment System, was essentially a home version of the MVS. Could only handle one cartridge, but it was the exact same hardware as the arcade. Now, one thing that always shocked me when I looked in GamePro is they would post the prices for the system as well as the games, and it was astronomical. It was something like $700 for the system, $250 per each game cartridge. And again, this is early 1990s dollars, not today. And it's like, oh man, that's so cool, but I thought I'd never see one, and I almost never did. I've seen one in more recent years that's like a classic game store. Everything there was still pretty pricey, and so that's never changed with it. But now it's been announced that this company, PlayOn Replay, or I noticed they spell that with AI at the end, has worked with SNK to design a new release of the Neo Geo AES, the AES Plus. But what is very impressive about this, because I mean, this is not the first time that we've seen a game console come along and returning something that was available in the past and updated for today. The main difference between this and all the other consoles or console remakes out there is 99% of them run off of an emulator, or they might run off of something called an FPGA, where it's essentially emulating either via software or emulating hardware as to what the platform is. But this is the first time that I've heard of where they've actually recreated the original hardware. And so it's not running off an FPGA or, like I said, an emulator. And so this not only allows you to plug in old AES cartridges if you have them, as well as accessories, but they're doing these new cartridge re-releases. I already saw one company that's looking into producing their own games onto new cartridges, and so that'd be original software for it. But again, this is very adjacent, more home focused out there. But if you're into Neo Geo at all because of the MVS and whatnot, this is available. Now, I've seen, or it's available for pre-order. I've seen some people complaining about the price. Funny enough, it's like, do you not understand how much this cost back in the day? It's like even at $250, which is not, I'm not saying that it's not a change. Still and so in that regard, it's like, and I'm also very surprised again, we've never seen anybody doing one of these system recreations. Like Nintendo's done that, and Sony's done that, and Atari's done that, and some others have too, in television and whatnot. And so there's not really been a shortage of finding these game console remakes from the past. However, just again, they've usually been emulator boxes, and so the cost of what it would take to recreate original hardware, even though it is ancient hardware, so to speak, that's not cheap. It costs a lot of money to spool up all the equipment for creating microchips and things of that nature, especially something that's not going to be like produced in the millions. And this was using the old Motorola 68000 processor, which was in a ton of arcade machines and computers and consoles and such, like the Sega Genesis and the Atari Jaguar both used that. But still, to see that, it's very impressive. And just for that alone, it kind of makes me want to support it if I had the money. But that is not as easy to come by these days on the cash side. But anyways, that really covers our arcade stuff for now. I guess we were able to fill out our time. But thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week where hopefully we have more to talk about.
All right. Well, that was awesome. Loved hearing about the new Neo Geo. Well, it's not new, right? It's obviously a recreation of the original Neo Geo system. And yeah, I was a big fan of it back in the day. Never had one, but had some friends that had some. So anyway, got a chance to play those. And yeah, it brings back some good memories from the childhood. So anyway, that is nearly a wrap here. We've got Sound Off number 118 with Kevin Williams coming out on Tuesday, April 21st. And remember, we are looking for season 5 suggestions. So if you have any suggestions, go to lbxers.com/season5. That's number 5, or scan this QR code if you're watching and give us suggestions for season 5 coming up and starting in August. We are definitely going to be remaking the show to keep it more lively and interesting as always. So anyway, season 5 suggestions. And that is a wrap for this week's LBX show. This is Brandon Wiley signing off. Stay tuned and keep kicking.